Hello, I'm Amy Zavi with the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for Wednesday, April 25th. Ways to answer BDS. But first, may I say blessings to everyone celebrating Passover as we are in the midst of a blessed time of reflection and marveling at God's miracles. So, BDS founder and anti-Israel activist Omar Barghouti was denied entry into the United States back on April 10th. He was stopped at the Ben Gurion airport and prevented from boarding the plane, even though he had at the time valid travel documents. He had been invited to the U.S. by the Arab American Institute, the AAI, to start in Washington and participate in a number of speaking and educational events. And then he was going on a tour which included Harvard University and New York University, and to meet with policymakers, thought leaders, and journalists. Even though he arrived at the Ben Gurion airport ready to fly to the U.S., he was informed by the American consulate in Tel Aviv that the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, USCIS, prevented Barghouti from traveling to the U.S., despite the fact that he holds a visa that doesn't expire till 2021. The BDS founder was told this was, quote, an immigration matter. AAI President James Zogby called Barghouti a leading Palestinian voice on human rights, and adding that this is the latest attempt at the Trump administration to disregard those rights. Zogby further went on to accuse Trump's immigration of trying to silence Palestinian voices. To rebut this, American Republican Congressman from New York District 1, Lee Zeldin, he defended the decision, saying the rise of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel hate throughout the world, in our nation, on college campuses, as well as the halls of Congress, must be rejected. He goes on to say, Barghouti's anti-Israel and anti-Semitic hate must not be tolerated, empowered, or embraced, and I applaud the administration's denial of his entry to the United States. So that was a win, I would say, for combating BDS and spreading viral ideas in the U.S., especially on our college campuses. In Israel, one way to fight BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction movement activities, is to remove the tax-exempt status from those organizations participating in the demise of Israel. In March, Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked signed new regulations removing tax breaks from organizations that support boycotting Israel or other BDS activities. This was specifically aimed against Amnesty International. Amnesty International itself has called for an arms embargo against Israel and boycotts of Israeli products, while Amnesty International enjoys tax exemptions in its operations in Israel. These regulations that Shaked signed are connected to the 2011 anti-boycott law, which allows two pathways for combating BDS. One is through civil lawsuits, and the other is through the government path. The government path states that organizations calling for the boycott of Israel or any region of Israel, meaning the settlements as well, cannot get public funding or tax breaks, and their participation in public tenders will be limited. Shaked approved these regulations following the High Court Justice ruling that said this step must be taken before the law can be fully implemented. The Justice Ministry, the Finance Ministry, the Strategic Affairs Ministry all drafted these regulations together. Now their final step is to be approved by the Knesset Constitution Law and Justice Committee. Quote, these regulations will give the State of Israel the tools to fight its enemy and boycotters at home and abroad. Shaked said, in the latest year and a half, I took personally in part to drafting these regulations, and I will continue to fight boycott organizations and BDS who work to delegitimize the State of Israel. As well, to follow up on the Airbnb story I reported a few months back, they have removed their decision, or reversed their decision, to not list housing units owned by Jews in a variety of the Israeli territories. That's about 20,000 properties in whole. They've apologized, and the listings are back, so you can now plan your trip. Madonna will not cave to BDS pressure, and she is scheduled to perform at Eurovision in Tel Aviv. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan, who is a Muslim, he demanded publicly that the British Labour Party expel its anti-Semitic members. In his quote, it is unacceptable that people who have said these things that are clearly anti-Semitic remain within the party. This is great news from the mayor of London. A vote of no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn was also passed by the Jewish labor movement. You'll remember that Jeremy Corbyn I reported on in the past and is not only openly sympathetic to Hamas and many terrorist organizations, he is an open and outright critic of Israeli policy and arguably anti-Semitic, and he has not done anything to quell or discipline members of his own party who are engaging in the same line of thought. He's a campaigner for Palestinian rights and a critic of the Israeli government and been accused of failing to tackle anti-Semitism within the Labor Party. I think failing to tackle is an understatement and instead is the cause and perhaps the fuel for it. But in any case, a vote of no confidence was still put on the record, and that to me is progress, at least symbolically. London also banned an Uber driver who refused to pick up and transport Jewish patrons. The University of California in Santa Barbara, for the second time, rejected a vote to divest from Israeli companies. So that is a win and tells me the student body there is starting to catch on to what's going on. Again, many blessings to all during this Passover season, and Shavua Tov, and have a wonderful week.